Writing a good story is hard. Making a good movie is hard. Transforming one into the other is even harder. Welcome to Adaptive Difficulty. This is a show where a couple of book lovers take on the challenge of adaptations. I'm Cameron, and with my friend Josh, we explore the difficult and sometimes bizarre choices that happen in the course of making an adaptation. This week, we are exploring 2003's Holes, starring Shia LaBeouf, based on Louis Sachar's award-winning 1998 novel of the same name.
Hello, I'm Josh.
And I'm Cameron.
If you had a Holes nickname, what do you think it would be? Or what would mine be?
I mean, I feel like Professor would be a good nickname for either of us because I feel like we're both kind of like bookish and we both got glasses, and I feel like that's the kind of thing they would latch on to.
Yeah. Shakespeare was on my short list that I feel like could be either of us. I feel like they're all 2 syllables or less, which is why I didn't go for something like Professor. For you, I had Rat Race, Equal. For myself, I had Beanbag, Popcorn.
I'm quite a big fan of.
They have to be a little,
like, it's got to be half like an insult, half like endearing.
Yeah, and I feel like it has to be a little out of left field. Like, it can't just be an actual quality of the person. For most of them are a little more like lateral than that,
I guess.
So
I like Beanbag. Beanbag, I think, suits you because you're always eating beans.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Chowing down on their delicious beans every day.
I do remember living in London briefly, and cans of Heinz beans and all other like canned vegetables say on them like 1 of your 5 a day. But I only owned that 1 can of beans, so I was like 1 of my 5 cans of beans a day.
That's just that country's wrong.
Yeah. So had you seen or read Holes before this time in your life?
I think everyone has seen Holes. If they were born after 2003, they saw Holes at some point. Or,
well, we were born before.
That's right.
2003.
If you're born,
but within proximity of it, I guess.
If you're 10 years on either side of Holes, you've seen Holes.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Had you read Holes?
I had not read Holes.
Really? At all?
Not at all. I think they now teach it at the elementary school that in the district I work at now as like a 5th grade book or something.
It's been taught in schools, I mean, pretty much since it came out, I think.
I know.
I don't think I read it for school, though. But I had read it just because I really liked the author in general as a kid. Like, I read all the Wayside Stories books. Did you read any of those?
No. So, I'll tell you, my thing whenever I was younger is that I read fantasy novels and nothing else.
Okay. Well, Wayside Stories is like... It was like skit comedy in written form for kids.
That sounds...
I guess. Is that...
I don't mean to be mean to your childhood favorite book, Josh, but that sounds terrible.
Well, I didn't say it was my favorite book. I just said I had read all the ones that there were.
Sounds like it's your favorite book to me.
It was like they were all set in this one, unusual school. But each chapter was just like a different joke. And the one I remember the most is like they install elevators in the school, but one elevator goes up and one goes down, so they just use each elevator once. And then
that's kind of funny.
Can't use the elevators anymore. Also, there's like a floor that doesn't exist, and so that chapter would never be in the books. But then there would be it would be like misplaced and be like a horror story chapter because it was always like spooky.
So he's doing the back rooms before the back rooms was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, none of the same aesthetic at all, but I guess it was a liminal space before liminal spaces were viral.
All those creepy internet rituals designed to get you to the other worlds.
But yeah, I had definitely read Holes, and I even read... I remember starting to read the loose sequel, Small Steps. Have you heard of this? Did you hear about it?
This is absolutely new information to me.
Small Steps is by the same author from a few years later, and Armpit is the main character.
Oh.
And it's like after he's been released from Camp Green Lake. But it's like pitched slightly higher in age, like maybe like middle schoolers are supposed to read it. So I just remember I was in like second or third grade, and I was like, Holes is so great, I got to read the sequel. And then like it talks about how Armpit was like released for like his weed charges or whatever, and like my dad was like, maybe this is not for you.
I don't know, Josh. I feel like you could have handled it.
So, because like obviously in Holes, like that has to be like 95% of the charges that they're facing as like incarcerated children, but it doesn't actually say any of the crimes anyone other than Stanley did.
Well,
and I guess Zero.
We know that Twitch stole cars.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's a single syllable one, Josh.
But you have to imagine the rest of these teenage characters mostly did alcohol or drugs or, theft.
I mean, it's kind of the thing where it's like, if it was any more serious, why would they probably would just, there would not be an option to go.
Why would they be sent to the camp of hole digging? Yeah. So, okay. So now that we know that you didn't know anything about this, and I was like the world's #1 Louis Sachar. I always thought it was Sachar or Sacker, but I don't actually know. What did we think of the book?
I feel like I'm more partial to the movie.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's just because like it's such a nostalgic like experience for me, because I guess I was 4 or 5 when I guess it technically came out, so like I didn't see it when I was 5 or whatever, but like I've seen it for a long time. It was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the movie a lot when I was a kid too. That's just interesting to me because I liked the book a lot.
I did also read this book in one sitting, so like that might have been a different thing.
It's not that long of a book though, so that wouldn't be that torturous.
I know, but like, I mean, there is something like, and this is true for like TV shows or whatever, which is why binge culture is dumb, where like doing it over the space of a period of time is a lot, I think, healthier and a lot more enjoyable for most people.
That's true. I guess I really, really liked the book, and I feel like it's just such a weird book. Like, I can't think of any children's book that reminds me of it, really.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think of like any book that kind of like captures the feel that this book does. I feel like this book does a good job of like embodying its like emotions and its like atmosphere.
Because I feel like it fits in that category of like I can picture like chapter books of like a similar reading level, I guess, which would be like Tuck Everlasting, The Taste of Blackberries, Sarah Plain and Tall, Hatchet, stuff like that.
Well, is it not mainly because like this book has like multiple stories intersecting it, where I think most of those other books are fairly like straightforward?
Yeah, it has like multiple stories intersecting it, and it's like non-linear to like the same degree as like Citizen Kane or something, and it it almost feels like a fantasy or like a magical realism, but it isn't really, because nothing, unless you believe in the curse and it's kind of ambiguous, nothing technically fantastical happens.
Yeah, but
it has this like folktale energy.
Yeah, it has that kind of, it feels like it's a series of like such improbable things that are still entirely possible, so you still kind of accept them. But like, because they're so improbable, it's like, okay, there's this like otherworldly element of like, what the role of fate is. And the fate feels like a much more like significant role in the universe in this book than other works.
Yeah. And the other thing that I noticed is like, I feel like it's very good at not feeling like it's written down to kids or like talking down to its audience. Like, other than probably using a slightly more limited like vocabulary and grammatical complexity, like it doesn't really feel like it's written down to kids at all. It just happens to be appropriate for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I didn't necessarily feel that, but it's been a long time since I've read a lot of children's books. Like,
it reminds me of like, this is kind of a weird comparison, but like if you just watch like The Incredibles, and you just like, if you were to like close your eyes or like try to picture that it was like in live action, there's like nothing about the script of The Incredibles that implies it's like a kid's movie. It's just like the aesthetics of it and that do it for you.
I guess that makes sense.
And it reminds me of like that type of writing.
Well, I think this is also true for the movie for me in a way, because I didn't realize the movie was 2 hours long when I first started watching it, which is like, it feels like a very long thing for like a children's movie to be about. Like, but I recall like sitting through this entire film and like enjoying the entire thing.
I've definitely seen the entire thing plenty, but this was also a like, it comes on Disney Channel and you catch like the middle 45 minutes.
That's true.
Like every 2 months. Classic.
I was not unconvinced when I first thought it was 2 hours that like these are like unreleased scenes or scenes that were like cut before like the purposes of showing more ads in like on like television. So I feel like some of these scenes didn't exist when I was a child, but that's probably just more because I don't recall those things.
No, I remember them all, and it like it's interesting, and it's like surprisingly like I feel like Holes as a like product overall when I think about it is like very lighthearted. Like it's an exciting adventure. There's kind of the escapism of like, what if I'm related to someone who hid a buried treasure, 100 years ago? But then there's like an actual lynching in the middle of it. So it's just like covers a surprising range of subject matter.
And it never feels like it's like the shifts between like severe kind of like dark material like the lynching doesn't necessarily feel out of place. It just feels like an extension of the work.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't feel
like there's not a dramatic tone shift.
It's not like bathos or whatever you would call it, like unsuccessful emotional
payoff,
catharsis. Yeah. It works. And also like the romance chapter between Sam and Kate Barlow is like 5 pages long, and it's just like, I mean, it's like the perfect little like romance short story on its own, even if it weren't in this book. Like I thought that was shockingly good.
Yeah. Like,
and it's just like
it is like shorthand romance, because like we don't know anything about these characters, but like it's done in such a like a concise way that I could think that like it feels genuine.
Yeah, to keep up with the Pixar metaphors, it's very like opening up.
Oh yeah,
like footnotes of a romance, but it works.
Marred by tragedy at the end.
Yeah,
I do think it's kind of weird sometimes. When I was reading this, like Sam's character is like a snake oil salesman for onions, like is very interesting to me as like a concept, because it's like, yeah, onions are good for you, but he's like, they'll cure your baldness, and I'm like, how are we supposed to engage with this?
Well, I think he wants the bit with, oh, it protects you from rattlesnakes to pay off.
Yeah,
is the main thing. And then I guess the fact that he's like a snake oil salesman, you're supposed to just kind of like ignore. Like, and I think it does a good job in the present plot too of like, the characters are not necessarily, even for a kid's book, it's like not painting this like moral, like the good characters are good and the bad characters are bad, like I think Stanley fights a couple other kids and all the kids in the book are, juvenile delinquents.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think like, especially Stanley, I think they're all a lot meaner to each other than they are in the movie. I mean, there's like mean parts in the movie, but like the whole vibe of
I think
it's very friendship oriented in the movie.
It feels more like teasing and camaraderie in the movie, whereas it feels like the other kids like really don't like him for most of the book. But like with the like moral complexity thing, the one that, and this goes for the movie and the book, the one I struggled the most with was Mr. Pendanski. Or Dr. Pendanski.
He's not a real doctor.
Because for like, there's several scenes in the book where he's like, follow your dreams, being an incarcerated youth doesn't define you. I'm calling you your real name out of respect. So it feels like he actually cares about them. And then he's also like, you get the scenes where he's like, well, hit him back, Stanley, teach him a lesson. And he like calls Zero stupid all the time. So he's like, he's become a part of the like social fabric of the kids in the camp, I guess.
Mm-hmm. He's their mom.
But then at the you're left thinking he's also part of this insane scheme to like enslave youths to like hunt treasure. So like he can only be like evil.
I've always like his role in like the whole organization feels like, I mean, it definitely feels like he's like the lowest on the totem pole. So I'm like, how much? I mean, I know he's definitely culpable. I'm not trying to like absolve him of any responsibility, but like it feels like,
well, it's like
there's not a lot that he could have done otherwise other than get fired.
Yeah, well, and this may have different answers for the movie and the book, but like when reading the book, to what degree does the state of Texas know that the kids are digging holes every day?
Yeah. I was very well, they're all like, well, we can't have an investigation or an inspection. That'd be like the worst thing. And I'm like, okay.
Right. But it's like, is it because the state doesn't know that all you're doing is making them dig a huge hole every day? Or is it because if they know that, but if they found out it was to get you treasure, then they would be mad? I just feel like
knowing what little I know about Texas, that has to be something that they would approve of. Like the state of Texas.
So Mr. Pendansky, maybe he just applied to be like a troubled youth counselor, which seems like the most likely option. but maybe he's like a friend of the warden and was like, I'll pose as a youth counselor and help you force kids to dig holes.
In the movie, he's explicitly called not a doctor. I don't actually recall if he's not a doctor in the book.
So if he's getting away with calling himself doctor because all the other adults in the camp go along with it, that gives an implication that he's like buddy with them.
Well,
part
okay.
Of the scheme.
My thing is that like he could be like, okay, we have this great deal where I get to pretend to be a doctor and I get paid a lot of money by the state to go do this, even though I don't have the requirements. He may not necessarily be involved in the treasure hunting scheme.
And you would think if it weren't a known, like, oh, Camp Green Lake is where you go dig a bunch of holes, then like none of the custodial staff, cafeteria staff, truck operations staff, like no one was whistleblowing about this like completely absurd thing they saw.
I want to see the recidivism rate. Like what, after they come back from Camp Green Lake, what's the chance of reoffending?
I feel like that depends on the chance you end up back at Camp Green Lake.
Yeah, I mean, but like, it feels like the whole reason, like why it's put up on like a good level is that, it's supposed to like make them good people, and whether or not we believe that is true.
Also, like the judges clearly see Camp Green Lake as like preferable to jail, and like vacancies always fill quickly because like attorneys choose Camp Green Lake for their clients. Mm-hmm. So that to me implies no one outside of it knows what it entails.
Yeah, but I mean,
which is like actual child slavery.
I mean, you're still probably going to get child slavery inside the actual prison itself. Like, it's not like the prison is like a utopia that like they're being deprived of.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I don't know enough about juvenile detention, but are they making the kids make the license plates in jails?
It would not surprise me in certain states, and Texas is certainly up there in terms of states that are going to do fucked up things in prisons.
That's true.
But I was also thinking as I was watching this of like, are the judges, because I know this is the thing where they sometimes get kickbacks from certain prisons to be like, put people in there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, is this like, and there was like no evidence of this like happening in the text or in the movie, but like I'm like, there's a history of this happening where like the most vulnerable, the children, are put into like certain kinds of like prisons and private prisons, so they get like kickbacks from the wardens because that's how they get their money.
Yeah, that definitely. That in my head, that's how it's working now. So moving on to. You want to just run through the movie? I think the first thing anyone has to say about this movie, great theme song.
I was going to say great memes, but yeah. I mean...
Like, the confidence to make a weird children's hip-hop song about digging a bajillion holes in the middle of the Texas desert.
You know what? It radiates...
And it's a banger.
It's so good. It's both like... Lion King 1.5's opening song where the Meerkats are digging a tunnel, And that opening song from Frozen, where they're digging ice.
Oh, yeah. It's like if the opening song from Frozen were actually relevant and you were settling in for a 2-hour movie about carving blocks of ice for shipment overseas.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like all the music in this movie was actually decent. Like, I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed it, because I also forgot how many songs there were in it.
It has a crazy soundtrack. And yeah, it has like a ton of needle drops that last like 10 seconds during a transition and then disappear.
Well, I just think like there's all kinds of montages in this movie, and all the montages are accompanied by songs.
True. And this is leaping way ahead, but I also discovered watching this, because I watched the entire credit sequence, if you get past the original song, the one that's like, let's go dig, you get to like a ballad that they also recorded and wrote just for this movie.
That's I did not notice. I skipped over that part because I wanted to see the post-credit scene. But that's wild. They really just like had too much time on their hands with this movie.
Like, you don't get that. Like, you don't get theatrically released children's movies that aren't animated or fantastical where they wrote 2 distinct credit songs. Like, I mean, they're just not putting that sort of care into it anymore.
You don't get that many adult movies that do that either.
Well, that's true.
But this was back when movies could be fun and didn't have to be money makers, even though this one was definitely made money.
Well, they had to be money makers. First, like, difference is the very opening, because it opens on Barfbag luring the rattlesnake to him.
Mm-hmm. See, this was one of the scenes that I forgot existed in the film.
And the book makes it clear that this is what happened, but not until much later, because at the beginning of the book, you just know there's a vacancy at Camp Green Lake. Stanley is filling it. So I just thought that was interesting, because from the jump in the movie, you know, like, this place must suck, because this kid just like let a rattlesnake bite him to escape. Whereas in the book, Stanley has this hope of like, maybe it is better than jail. It's like a summer camp for troubled teens.
Yeah. It does a good job of setting the tone of the place. Because I think that, like, it also does a good job of hiding the actual true monster in the movie, which is the lizards. Well, the real monster is the warden, but the animal monsters is the lizard, where it's like, that's a nice kind of reveal later on of like, oh, you thought this was bad, and, you know, but it's not as bad as like the evil lizards that are made of CGI and look like they're made of rubber and kill you by. Oh
god, they look so bad. That is something I did not remember, is how horrible the lizards look.
It's one of those things where, like, it's 2003, CGI is not that good in general, but it is probably cheaper than doing practical effects.
But it's like, well, they do show real lizards a decent chunk of the time, so it's like, they clearly could have done most of the shots they needed with actual lizards.
Well, yeah, but then you have to, I don't know, train the lizards and get them to do the right thing, and also you had to deal with, like, this is not in the book, but like the lizards like are like geckos, where they like unfurl their skin flaps.
Yeah, and also there's this, the lizards is one thing, like them being CGI would be fine, but that scene where Mr. Sir shoots one of them, and his gunshot hole is like a bright yellow circle. It's like a Team Fortress 2 like bullet JPEG.
That whole sequence is hilarious to me, because like it's them trying to sleep, and Mr. Sir is just going around firing his gun like he's hunting lizards.
Yeah, John Voight is like, I can't remember if he's dead or not, but he is like senile if he's not. This is a great comedic performance from him in his aging years.
I like his little, like,
he's also
sideburns that like don't go all the way down and just go off, and there's like a little line underneath them.
Because Mr. Sir in the book is like pitiful in the same way, because you end up with this impression of like, why does this asshole care so much about like these kids stealing his sunflower seeds? But he doesn't come across as like a clown in the same way as like the movie version, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And that's just down to like the performance.
Yeah, but I feel like this movie in general is a lot more comedic than I think the book is.
Yeah. I mean, just to say it early, I mean, it's very close to the book. Like, very few sequences got cut, and a lot of the dialogue is pretty close to exact.
I will say, I mean, it's possibly also kind of a thing of like visually seeing it probably makes it a little bit more comedic than just reading it out loud or reading it in your head.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely true.
It's possibly that, but I just felt like I was more amused, like, in my funny bone from the movie than from the book.
Yeah.
And, like, the one thing that, like, I feel like they added is that scene where it's after they're like, what are we going to do if she comes back, like the Stanley's lawyer? And the warden's like, you'll do what I say. And this is Mr. Sir asking that question. She's like, what do we do? She's like, you'll do as I say. And she walks off. And then they're like, him and Mr. Padansky are both talking to each other, and they're like, but she didn't say anything. And then Mr. Padansky's like, well, what should we do? And then Mr. Sir is like, you'll do what I say, and walks off and puts his hat on. And that's like a very funny moment to me, because like it's not in the book, I don't recall, because I think most of the books from Stanley's perspective when we're in the Camp Green Lake area. But it's a little like comedic like sequence between the three of them.
Right. There's not a ton of it, so maybe this point is not that relevant. But they do use Stanley as like a first-person narrator, at least near the beginning. Which I thought was interesting because the book is not in first person. But also, like, the plot of the book is so dense that I kind of don't know how you would get away with not any narration at all during any of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reason why it's Stanley's narration is because, I mean, he's the main character, and anytime a book has to do narration, I guess the writers or the CEOs behind the movies are like, well, it's got to be the main character who says it, because then...
Yeah, and that's fair. I guess the only other option would be the, like, voice of God style narrator, like, not a character in the movie, which could give it some, like, more tall tale, like, energy, which it already has.
You probably could have gotten Stanley's grandfather to say it.
Yeah, because he narrates some of the other flashbacks. So,
and I think that would have been in the same vein of, like, Grandpa Joe from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory narrating the last time he was visited by Willy Wonka, when he took the Eucharist and the bird was born again.
Anything on your end?
The only thing is, how do you feel about Shia LaBeouf's performance?
Fine.
How do you feel about his version of Stanley versus the book versions of Stanley?
The book version of Stanley is fat. I would say that's my main qualm with the live action version.
So you think they should have kept a fat Stanley?
Yes. Absolutely.
Why?
So this is like my main overarching like distinction, I guess, is that there's a lot of themes in the book and the movie, but one of the themes of the book and what gives the main character an arc is like Stanley goes from lacking self-confidence to gaining it, and him being fat is part of that. And then in the movie, he just kind of like doesn't have an arc at all, because he doesn't really seem more or less self-confident in the beginning or the end. He's just kind of a vessel for like the rest of the interesting plot to happen around him.
Okay.
Like Zero has an arc, and Stanley helps Zero's arc occur. But he doesn't really change.
Yeah, it's kind of what I noticed, because I feel like what I noticed about Stanley in the book, besides the being fat, is that he's kind of mean to like Zero initially, which he's not in the book, or not in the movie. Like in the book, he's like very dismissive, and it's like, I think it's partially because he's trying to be self-confident and have kind of a relationship with his friends.
Yeah, he's buying into the like camp dichotomy of like, I want to be friends with these guys, and they're mean to Zero, so I should be mean to Zero. Whereas like the movie, partially because it has to be more efficient, because it's like telling the story faster, is like Stanley will, have like, not like a heart of gold, because he's not like that amazing, but like he'll be more sympathetic from the jump than he is in the book.
I just feel like in kind of leaning towards your kind of like self-confidence arc, like the desire to also be a good person and be like helpful to other people while also being self-confident is, I think, an important trait that like Stanley has to learn.
Right. But it's just like, I almost feel like the movie, as like, it's entertaining, but it's almost just like, if I stop and think about it, it's like, it's entertaining because so much stuff is happening all the time, but like, what is actually like happening on like a character level, and it's not that much.
Yeah, but like, does it need to be that much?
I don't know. I mean, to some degree, it's just fun, and it's populated with fun characters, you know. So,
I mean, just I feel like you know, the younger your story is aimed for, the more likely it is that your themes are going to emerge from like the events of this plot rather than necessarily like the actions of the characters, if that makes sense. And I feel like this is one of those cases.
that's true.
Where it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a super young children's book, but it's still very much like at the age where you can't grasp the nuances of like minor character
Right.
moments.
That's true. On his drive to camp, Stanley like sees an apparition of Sam and his donkey Mary Lou,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was interesting because that doesn't happen in the book.
Well, so I like it as a decision because I think it kind of helps capture the feeling of the kind of multiple time period narratives taking place in the book, where it's like they're all
Yeah,
overlapping.
like the past coming to bear on the present.
Yeah. And like
It helps set you up for that. Yeah.
so I like it as like both a kind of, you know, practical device of like setting you up for like the past kind of flashbacks, but also kind of like the thematic device of these two things are in proximity to each other, even like beyond like the scope of time.
Yeah. And then there's also like this movie kind of mixes around which things it makes like a mystery for longer
Mm-hmm.
versus just like kind of outright explains. Two of them that I'm thinking of are the first time Stanley mentions he stole those shoes. There's this like very lingering shot of Zero who's like, you know, wide-eyed about it. So, you know, anyone paying attention is like, Zero has something to do with these shoes, or maybe he stole them. Whereas that's revealed much later in the book.
Yeah, but I mean, in the book, there's also like whenever he's telling that story, he later like goes up to them and it's like, "You mean the ones with the red X's on them?" So like, it's still there in the book.
And then on the flip side of that, and in the book, they mention like Yelnats being Stanley backwards, like very early on. They just like say it. Whereas I don't think in the movie they really dwell on it or explain it until like that climactic moment where Zero's like, Yelnats is your name backwards, right? To like show that the luggage belongs to this treasure belongs to Stanley, and also Zero can read now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they bring that up. He brings it up whenever he first gets to camp because he's telling Mr. Sir about that.
Okay.
But like, I mean, again, that's like a very minor.
So he
moment.
does say it in the movie.
Yeah.
Early on. Okay.
But I mean, I feel like
it's easier to.
I feel like in the book, it's easier to see because it's like physically in front of you. But
right.
also,
Like it would be hard to avoid.
They also just mention it a whole lot more.
Yeah. The flashbacks get flipped around a lot. Like they happen in slightly different places, but that gets so complicated that I'm not sure it's worth.
Yeah, and I also like don't think it's
diving into
that big of a deal. Like, does it really matter if you see when you see like the flashback with Madame Zeroni versus the flashback with Kissing Kate Barlow? Like, I mean, I don't think it really matters in terms of like the grand scheme of things.
Right. Okay, and so then we're getting close to my like overall impression of the movie, which I started Googling to like see if I wasn't insane, and it was like impossible to find relevant search results. This started to me to feel like, and I don't know if you have like a frame of reference for this or not, because I don't know how many you've seen, but it was like a Coen Brothers movie for kids.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that?
So, and I haven't seen so many myself that I'm like the expert or anything, because I've got some big blank spots in what I've seen, but it's just like they tend to have convoluted plot lines that are like perfectly laid out. Like, it seems like chaos, but they all come together. Like, very intricate. They often feature like a large sum of money that is ultimately kind of like immaterial to the story being told, but like the plot circles around it, which this one meets that definition. If you've seen like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, there's like the suitcase of money that gets lost in the flood. Hail Caesar has a case of money like that. No Country for Old Men has like a fortune that gets lost and no one ends up being able to claim it, that people are after. Obviously someone claims it in this, but that's part of it being for kids. And then like they have like very broad, amusing characters played by notable actors, if that's a fair, like, you know. I mean, Tim Blake Nelson was in The Ballad of Buster Scruggs for one, but like I just feel like the cast of adults is all like so, it's like distinct. They have some seriousness to them, like they're not just like
slapstick
clown characters, but they're also amusing and kind of like these broad, like amusing archetype characters, which feels very Coen Brothers.
Well, I feel like it's one of those things where like to be an adult in a children's movie as an actor, you have like two paths to go along. You can either just like, this is just money in the bank and I'm going to give as a little amount of effort as I possibly can, and that leads you down like the caricature route. Or you have like, I'm going to put my entire, you know, essence into this character and take it and kind of make it my own. And that's kind of like the route where you have here, where it's like, yeah, they are like, you know, kind of caricatures, but they also like are very complex in significant ways.
Yeah. And also just like the cast for this movie for the adults is like stacked.
Yes.
Like, so it would almost be impossible for it to, like, for their performances to end up bad when it's like great famous actors surrounded by other great famous actors like Sigourney Weaver, Jon Voight, Tim Blake Nelson, Eartha Kitt, a few others, Henry Winkler. But, and like, yeah, I feel like I had some other points. It's just like Hail Caesar is like this like comedy movie that's also like a satire of like mid-century biblical epic production, because it's like set on a studio lot while they're trying to decide like how to portray God in a film. And then there's also like this sum of money that people are after, or like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is like, you know, this like adventure story set in the South that's also like a gospel musical to some degree. And like it's just like that like blending of genres. It's like Holes, like nothing has a plot similar to Holes, because like who else would set a story like in a desert like juvenile detention center where they dig a bunch of holes, and also there's like a racist past and like an Eastern European tall tale. Like,
I mean, I guess it's just one of those things
kind of combined to add up to feel like that to me.
It's one of those things where it's like, I feel like for a lot of people, children's literature is something that's like given less than half a thought. And so like when you give it more than a full thought, you get something like kind of interesting and good. Because did this book win a Newbery? I forget.
It did. And if you read the Wikipedia article, people are like, actually, let me list all the genres it's been given on Wikipedia. This is like, I mean, probably the most like regarded book for this age range of the last 30 years.
Because I was reading, I just finished reading Hello Universe, which is another Newbery winner from, I think, 2019. And it has like some similar things where it's like multiple stories, but like not anywhere any kind of like, not in the way that Holes is. And I'm like, Holes is, I feel like, a significantly better book than Hello Universe. And I like Hello Universe as a book.
I'm not finding it right now, but there was something talking about how it's like, it's been compared to like postmodernism and things in its reception. I don't know where that line went, but yeah.
It's in the background section. This novel is characterized as young adult literature, but has also been labeled as realistic fiction, a tall tale, a folk tale, a fairy tale, a children's story, a postmodern novel, detective fiction, and a historical legend.
Right. So it's just like basically a lot of ink has been spilled about this book, which I guess says something about it, regardless of what that ink says.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those books that like you can't quite pin down. And like I'm trying to think of another book. I'm trying to even think of like another adult book that is like this, where it's like impossible to like put into a category.
I think there's some Vonnegut books that I don't think they don't exist. I mean, they don't leap to mind, but like there's some Vonnegut books that are pretty like genre bendy. I mean, lots of books are that way, really. But to move into a thing I did not like that much about the movie, we've already covered the CGI, which is one aspect that dates it. The amount of random, like, kind of abrupt cuts into slow-mo.
Yes. And it's not just...
That just reeks of, like, early 2000s to me.
And it's not just, like, the abrupt cuts into slow-mo, but it's, like, the voiceover from the past that's restating something that you've already heard 10 times about, like, oh, your great-great-grandfather is a no-good, pig-stealing man or whatever it was. Or you must carry Madame Zeroni up the mountain. And all of it's like, they kept saying it over and over again. And I'm like, I know this is a children's story.
That almost, it reeked to me a little bit of either the director or editor did not trust that like kids could follow the connection between the stories.
Yeah.
So they were like, make sure to remind them of it. Or, it's just like in the book, they were like with the carrying Zeroni up the mountain thing, like in the movie, as soon as it starts happening, as soon as Stanley picks up Zero, they play that voiceover. That's like, you must carry Madame Zeroni up the mountain. Mm-hmm. In the book, it happens and you have time to figure that out yourself. Like come to this conclusion like, oh, this is just like what was supposed to happen. And then there's like one line in the epilogue that's like, exactly 100 years after he was supposed to, Stanley carried the great-great-great-grandson of Madame Zeroni up the mountain. So like it still ends up explicitly telling you, but it gives you the chance to figure it out yourself and have that moment of like it all clicking.
I do find that like that last section in the book is kind of weird as like something you would put into a children's book. Like it feels very like...
Yeah, that's the most obvious I'm writing a children's book moment to me. And almost like the voiceover and the non-subtlety of it in the movie reeks of like studio meddling for like, make sure kids will get it.
Mm-hmm.
And the epilogue in the book almost reeks of like editorial meddling, like make sure kids will get it,
Yeah. I mean, nothing quite like meddling. Those meddling kids.
And I don't have any proof that happened.
I just like...
But I think you could cut the epilogue from the book and you could cut every time a flashback's voiceover shows up in a different scene from the movie, and both things would be improved if you did that.
So what's the... that phobia about the fear of holes. Trypophobia?
Tryptophobia?
Yeah. Mild case of that at the beginning of the film when they were like driving into Camp Green Lake.
Do you think this caused it in people?
Well, I don't necessarily know. I think if that caused...
The same way people are like, like the animated Robin Hood caused a generation of furries.
Okay. I think that one has a more direct causation than the trypophobia of holes.
But like tryptophobia was not anything anyone had heard of until like 10 years ago on Reddit.
Yeah,
so it definitely could line up with like the existence of the movie Holes raised a generation of tryptophobites.
Yeah, I've always been more compelled by the argument that like it's a visceral reaction to like disease in like people's faces than like anything else.
Yeah. And I guess the other counter argument is that when I was a kid and I was watching Holes, I kind of wanted to go there and dig a hole. I wasn't scared of it.
Well, no, see, this is the part that I like in the book, where like Stanley's very much like after he's done with his first hole, he's like, actually, this is kind of this is a little awesome, and then he's like, okay, but it also sucks, which I find so fascinating as like a character, because I'm also like, that would definitely be me. I would also be not having a good time, especially if I'm in middle school, because I'm still a large man, but I was a fat child in middle school. And this probably would have been terrible, but I also been like, wow, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's like, and the book and movie both kind of mention like, doesn't every kid want to dig a hole to China? And it's weird because it's like, at the end of each day, you could look at your awesome 5 foot by 5 foot hole that you dug. But you would also know that you're like never accomplishing anything. And if you are going to accomplish something, it's like at the behest of the warden. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's both alienating and not.
She's my favorite character in the movie.
She's awesome. She gets the like, I think it's so funny that she gets a like minute long like
intro.
Her car pulls up with music playing, and then you like see her step out, and the only possible reason they do it that way is because Sigourney Weaver is playing her.
Yeah,
I mean, it's for like the adults in the audience who are gonna like clap when they're like, "Oh, it's Sigourney Weaver."
Yeah, because in the book it's like the car drives up and then they step out, and then Stanley sees that it's a woman and not a man, and that's like the twist of the book or whatever, or a twist in the book. I mean, it's also the twist in the movie as well. But she's just like,
she was aura farming during that intro.
Legitimately. I'm like, I want her to smack me in the face with the rattlesnake nails. But I find it somewhat fascinating in this book and the movie that like how like gender plays a role, because like wanting to be called Mr. Sir, and in the movie it's kind of they make it so that like his first name is Marion, and it's like a joke on his masculinity.
Yeah, and the screenplay of this is by the author of the book, so I wonder if he wanted that in the book and it just didn't make it ultimately, and it did survive in the screenplay, or
what happened for a long time when I after I saw this movie as a younger child, there's that line where after it's revealed that his name is Marion, one of the kids is like, I didn't realize that was a guy's name or whatever, and he says it ain't in response. And for a long time as a child, I was like, is he supposed to be a woman? Like, is that like the twist?
You were just too woke of a kid.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, the early 2000s Disney media was filled with this idea that like it was embarrassing to have the name Marion.
Yeah.
Because Marion Mosby in Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. But it was just, it's like I know more examples of men named that, mostly because of these two pieces of media, than I know women named that.
I don't know. There was just always something about Mr. Sir's appearance that, like, I wouldn't have called it this then, but it strikes me as very butch lesbian.
Well, don't let John Voight hear you say any of this. He's like,
oh, is he a renowned homophobe?
He's super, super Republican.
Okay, well then I'm doubling down on this. He's very butch lesbian. And that's why I find it fascinating. Like, he's always been like, you have to call me Mr. Sir. It's like you have to like double the masculinity of this character.
And you have the whole thing with Dr. Pendanski being mom.
Yeah,
and he's the most like emotionally available person in the camp. And then the warden is a woman, but she's emotionally closed off and inaccessible. And everyone assumes she's a man until she shows up. So I think you're onto something here.
Well, and I also think that, like, so kissing Kate Barlow kills people and then kisses them after they're dead or whatever. And it's like a moment.
So she makes it like she's turning this super masculine act into like an overtly feminine one.
Yeah. And then in reverse, the warden has the nail polish that is full of rattlesnake venom. And so she's making this feminine thing very masculine. I've got to write a paper about this, Josh. This is.
I don't know what any of it means, but I think we've cracked something that I did not see anyone mention in the Wikipedia articles.
Like, it just, so much of it feels so much about gender.
They are producing, and this doesn't seem like a good idea, but they're doing it, a gender swapped version for Disney Plus.
Really?
Sounds like something that'll get stuck in development hell and like never release, or like release to a wet fart if it does, but it is being made, supposedly.
That's fascinating. Also, And this is kind of the last thing I noticed. So when Kissing Kate Barlow dies in the book, it's because like they can't stop the thing from biting her, the lizard from biting her. Whereas in the movie, she like deliberately takes it into her hand and like commits suicide. And I like the movie version better, significantly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm gonna have to ponder this gender thing because now it's gonna bug me forever.
Yeah, it's like I agree with you now that we've gone over all the examples that it's definitely happening in the story, but like
I can't tell what it's like supposed to mean.
Not what it all means or why it's being used.
Well, I feel like I don't know. Maybe it has something. I probably tie it somewhere into like the Latvia like depiction of women, of like what's is it Mira? Is that her name? Where she's like a dumb blonde who like can't like decide for herself.
Well, like in the movie, in the book, she is 15.
Yeah.
And this tall tale is sort of this like you're rooting for the Yelnats because he's also 15, so he's like the age appropriate spouse, and there's like a 57-year-old competing for her hand in marriage, which is very creepy. And you're like, I don't want that, fat child molester to win this. In the movie, they age them up so that this is not an issue.
Yeah, I got major Princess Bride vibes from the movie version.
And in the movie, I think they make her extra, extra dumb to compensate.
I mean, I still feel like, the same thing happens in the book where it's like,
yeah,
let me count. I'll pick a number between 1 and 10. That's who I'll decide or whatever.
Right. And then Yelnats is like, well, if you can't pick me earnestly, I'm out of here.
Good on him. What a king.
I thought it was funny when they were talking about like, okay, there's this weird, like, all the camp kids also think the warden is hot, obviously, because they're like, oh, maybe she's spying on us in the shower.
Yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I could see how we're supposed to laugh at this whenever it's 1998 and or 2003. It doesn't feel as comfortable to laugh at in 2025.
Yeah, but I did like when they're like, we said she had a camera in the shower, not a microscope.
That is funny. Nothing quite like making fun
but
of
that's also like, it's a lot edgier than like anything that happens in the book.
That's true.
So they aged up the movie slightly, I think.
It's one of those jokes that like the people who the book was written for will not get it, so it's fine.
And they also won't notice that it doesn't make sense. So
microphone, not microscope. I did get, and this is mainly because I have a broken brain, but like every time they like talked about other characters and their holes, it was very like just a level of like initial like, okay, my mind is in the worst possible place for this joke.
Yeah.
But
so then, kind of after you've got the warden introduced, everything kind of happens pretty much as it does in the book. Yeah. Without a lot of deviation until you get to like the climax where they go on the adventure and climb God's Thumb is all pretty by the book.
I will say, watching them do that is like so funny to me because like they're like climbing like sheer cliffs or whatever with no like equipment whatsoever, and I'm like, these children should have died like 100 feet below.
But so then we kind of, to bring it back up, they're climbing the mountain. Stanley carries Zero, and the voiceover plays that's like, you will carry Madame Zeroni up the mountain. The movie is very explicitly like, there was a curse and now it has been lifted.
Mm-hmm.
The book is more like, maybe there was a curse and doing that lifted it.
Who knows? Well, I think in the movie, it immediately cuts to Stanley's family solving their crisis of like their dad, and I can't believe you've not mentioned this.
Right, that's why I put this down. Yeah,
and like
because the cross cutting there makes it explicit. Like they get this breakthrough as soon as it happens,
and you get that in the book in that kind of that final segment or whatever. But it's like, it is kind of weird that it happened on the same day, but who can say? And it kind of moves on from there.
Yes, and to be clear, we're talking about, which we haven't brought up yet, which is the not even B plot, it's like the D plot of Stanley's dad trying to invent a cure for foot odor.
Well, actually, he's trying to find a way to recycle
used shoes.
Used shoes. I don't fully understand.
But he accidentally invents a cure for foot odor.
Yeah, I don't fully understand what he means by recycling shoes. But he invents a foot odor
also
that they call sploosh.
The weirdest thing for me, because there's all these like parallels, obviously, between all the plot lines, but the other suitor for Kate Barlow is Trout Walker, who is like the rich guy or like daddy's boy in town.
Mm-hmm.
And they mention how he has like foot odor that could never be quelled.
And then immediately afterwards, it's like,
and
it's the same foot odor that this famous baseball player has.
Oh, does it say that?
Yeah, it's like he's known as Trout Walker.
It's like it was just like it like doesn't really come up because it's not like the past story of him having foot odor like helps the present story. It's just like another character that has foot odor for when foot odor gets brought up again later.
Yeah, I think it was. I think the author in that case was just writing as like, oh, this is going to be good, and then didn't think about it any further than that.
Because it's not like Trout Walker has like a descendant or anything like that makes it more relevant than just kind of like a joke. But that's fine. I mean, it's foot fungus.
Do you think that means that like Sigourney Weaver's character has the foot fungus as well? Because she's always wearing boots.
That could have been the way to tie it in. Like, I don't know how. That's for the writer to figure out. But
an extended.
There's a starting.
Okay, we need to remake this movie.
But we can't.
We need to remake this movie.
Last thing,
but Quentin Tarantino needs to direct this film.
I was like, the last thing this movie needs is extended features of Sigourney Weaver's foot odor.
I don't know, Josh. I think that's what the people crave.
And then the last thing in my notes we got to way early, which was just like, well, in the movie they expose the counselors, with warrants or whatever. In the book, there's just kind of like an implication that they will eventually be got by like the justice system.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just back to like, what did the state of Texas know and when did they know it?
But see, what I find interesting about the ending and the difference in the ending is in the movie, it's very much still based in kind of that like detent, like camaraderie between all of them, because at the very end of the movie, they're all at that house, at Stanley's house, and they're kind of like having a party. And that's not true at all in the book. The book is like, yeah, it's just going to be Stanley and Zero from here on out.
Yeah, they're less. He never really becomes friends with the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think he develops a like somewhat positive relationship with him in the book, but I don't think it's like deep friendship.
Right. So I think, I mean, in both the book and the movie, the part where he like steals Mr. Sir's truck and just like drives it straight into a hole and fucks it up is like all the detent kids are like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's like the turning point.
I can believe that for middle school Stanley. For Shia LaBeouf Stanley, I feel a little bit more like, okay, maybe you should have been paying attention as you were driving.
Yeah, it does seem like, but also at the same time, it's like it would have been really hard to avoid 5-foot holes in that.
Yeah,
so.
But yeah, I mean, I guess comedically, it makes more sense for him to crash the truck where Mr. Sir can see him, because then Mr. Sir can react. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like he probably could have made it at least a little bit further out into the desert before he crashed into one of the holes.
Yeah. It's also like, to go along with like, everyone running this camp should be like, sentenced for life. Like, it's like standard operating procedure that if like a kid starts to run, they're just like, he'll die within 3 days, so don't chase him.
Well, it depends on whether or not they have a family or not. Well, I think the idea is that they will come back.
Oh, yeah. Okay, actually, yeah, that brings up the point, which is, in both versions, they make a point of like, we don't actually have files on Zero. We don't know why he's here. Don't let them find that out. So that takes it from just like, kind of an absurd, like, juvenile detention center to just like, they like abducted, trafficked, and enslaved Zero.
No. They had files They just deleted them once Zero ran away.
Oh, okay.
Because they didn't
want anyone
to trace. That's better, Josh. It was still slavery, but it was like, there's no trafficking involved.
They already had him. They didn't have to move him from one place to the other, so it's less of an offense.
But, well, I mean,
any other thoughts?
The only other thought is that I think this movie is great for memes. Like, there's the classic, I'm tired of this, Grandpa. And he's like, well, that's too damn bad.
That's the classic. Yeah. I was saying that before it happened.
But I also think that, like, it's definitely going into, like, description of the episode, I think, somehow. I'm tired of this episode, Grandpa. That's too damn bad. You keep listening. But I think, like, it's just funny. It'll stick with me for life. I want to be buried in a 5 foot by 5 foot hole.
Or the book? Or
the movie.
Do you think Steven Spielberg watched this and was like, that's the next Indiana Jones. He must be in.
I forgot about that Indiana Jones. Thanks for reminding me, Josh. No, I think
it's good.
Transformers came out first, right?
Oh yeah, and Steven Spielberg produced that.
Did he?
Yeah, he makes like a ton of money off the existence of Transformers.
Wow, at least
even though they're like way below his directorial standards. Well, that question went nowhere. So,
I mean, we'll cut that one.
So what? So if turning it into a movie or a video game, what video game would it be?
This feels Yoshi to me.
Like, so it would be pretty easy.
Yeah, because like I feel like you can just kind of do a direct scene by scene kind of lift, like they basically did, and get pretty much the same movie. I wonder if you don't feel that way because they did it so successfully, but it wasn't actually that easy to do. You know? Well, I'm trying to think, if it didn't have if it didn't have that like awesome theme song, would it be as good? And that requires effort. You can't. I mean, it's hard to picture the negative example or whatever. Once you've seen Holes with the theme song, how could you ever imagine it without it? For hypothetical, it's certainly a lesser film without the theme song. I feel like I would almost bump it up a degree. Really, what I want to say is I feel like it's some game that like requires creativity to like complete, like Minecraft or something. Okay, we can't add a new game dimension, Josh, because you have to put all the pieces in the right order. Okay, but I would bump it up a degree and give it like a Mario. Okay, just because for a kids movie, I think it's asking a lot to balance like a total of 4 intertwining nonlinear plots. Okay. And how about like a dozen characters? It's a speed run of Mario. Okay. So you have some like creative expression in the skips that you're using, some technical prowess in the screenplay department, but ultimately it's Mario. Yeah. I guess I can. Or maybe it's a speed run of Yoshi. Speed run of Yoshi? That strikes the right balance. Mm-hmm. First of all, no one's doing it. That's so true. It's an original. Where's the Yoshi Woolly World speed run? I mean, those have definitely happened, but they're just not a top category. Yeah, I mean, it's because like that the platform mechanics are not that like complicated in Yoshi. I think that the movie of Holes, it got like top 3. Maybe I guess I'll say it set the world record for the Yoshi speedrun. Yeah, probably true. I mean, like I'm trying to think of like movies based on children's books that I think where the movie gets even somewhat close to kind of being as good as the book. Like I don't think that like Outsiders. Tuck Everlasting is definitely worse, and I feel like that's the closest thing I can think of where it has this like tall tale like vibe that Holes has. I liked that book. I like the book. I haven't read or seen it since 5th grade, but I liked the book. We read Where the Red Friend Grows in 5th grade. The Black Stallion, did you ever read that? No, but I did see The Black Cauldron, and it was one of my all-time favorite movies when I was like 6. The Black Stallion's like a book where this kid is like on a plane that crashes, and he and like a horse are like the only survivors. So it's like Hatchet, but with a horse.
No, he's the only survivor. And he's like on an island. I don't know if he's the only survivor or if he's just the only one that makes it to this specific island. But anyway, he ends up alone on an island. And there's this beautiful black horse that lives on the island. And it's like the first half of the book is like Robinson Crusoe, but just a boy and a horse. And then the second half of the book, they rescue him. And it's just like a sports drama about this horse winning races.
It's such a wild like divide.
And I think, much like The Outsiders, the movie was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, maybe? Let me check.
But, like, I think The Outsiders book is significantly better than The Outsiders movie. And I would probably put them... I personally prefer the movie to the book, but that's because I think it delivers about the same experience in 2 hours what the book did in 3.5 hours for me or something like that.
Okay, I don't know why I thought it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, but it was directed by another acclaimed director named Carol Ballard. You were saying what? Was that about The Outsiders?
Oh, that like I think The Outsiders movie is definitely not as good as the book, but I think Hull's movie is like on par, if not better than the book, because it delivers it basically the entire experience in an hour and a half shorter.
Yeah, that's fair. I think for the reason I said way earlier about Stanley doesn't have an arc, it just feels like that's an important element of both just like having a character that like goes through changes, and also like it's a fairly unique feature now to have like an overweight main character in like anything, especially children's books, and especially in 2003 or 1998, even more so. So it's a shame to lose it.
I do also appreciate that this book does not suffer the curse of being like part of the arc is him losing a bunch of weight. Like, I'm sure he did lose weight in the book, but like it's only ever described as like he just got stronger, which I thoroughly appreciate that, like that kind of portrayal.
Yeah. I mean, he probably honestly was pretty skinny by the end of the book because he was digging a 5-foot hole and eating slop every day for
but like
months,
it was still never like it was still never the case.
It was never mentioned.
It was never mentioned. It was never the case that like his confidence is now because of like his weight loss or whatever.
Yeah. So ultimately, I feel like other than that one detail, this probably is about as good as you could do adapting this, other than like a couple minor things that are just like a feature of the time, like the absurd amount of slow-mo. But to make up for the slow-mo, there's a bunch of other like stylistic touches that I think like a lazier version of this that like respects the material and its audience less would not have had, like the awesome theme song and the cast being like so strong and doing so well.
How do they get Sigourney Weaver? That's what I want to know. How do you pitch Holes to Sigourney Weaver?
Who knows? I mean, probably with a truck of money, but I don't know how much she got paid for.
Does that mean we're saying it completes the film?
It got the world record in the speed run. What else do you need to know?
I'm sorry, Josh. Sometimes our scale system confuses me. Which I guess it's supposed to, so.
Been watching or reading anything else?
I mentioned I read Hello Universe. I finished that about 3 days ago.
What is that again?
So it's the Newbery winner from 2018, 2019, something like that. And it's about they're about to start middle schoolers. They're just now becoming 7th graders. And one of the main characters likes the other main character who's like deaf, and he ends up getting trapped in a well for various reasons, and the rest of the people have to go like rescue him. Honestly, that book is good, but like it's a book where not a lot happens.
Did you, speaking of like Newbery winners, did you ever read The House of the Scorpion?
I did not. When was
it? Was the Newbery winner, let me look at Wikipedia here, in 2002. And it is like insane. It's a sci-fi future book set in a land now called Opium. And it's like this kid discovers like most of the world is ruled by like drug lords now.
Mm-hmm.
And this kid discovers that like he's like one of like thousands of clones of a drug lord. And like I just remember it was like one of the few times in like elementary school I was reading a book and I was like, am I supposed to be reading this? Like,
That's fascinating.
what is going on?
So the reason I was reading Hello Universe is I'm looking for books to add to my collection in class for them to read. And so I'm also reading a couple other Newberries. So I'm currently reading The Last Quintista, which is a science fiction book where a solar flare has caused Halley's Comet to come crashing into Earth. So the Earth's destroyed, and they sent off people to kind of to another planet on a spaceship. And so, but there's this like new age cult where they're called like the Collective, and their whole goal is to like erase history so humans can start fresh. And so this girl, who's the main character, is like wants to be a storyteller, so she knows all these stories of Earth, and she's like trying to like save the stories and defeat the Collective so that humans can like exist. Pretty good so far. I'm like a third of the way through it.
Nice.
What are you reading or watching?
I saw the new Naked Gun.
How's that?
It was good. The original Naked Gun is like my favorite comedy movie. This was not as good, which I expected, but it nailed like it's doing the same style of humor, which is like not very common these days. So I appreciate that they like it was pretty good and they made the effort. I would recommend it. I watched Clueless, which is great, obviously. Have you seen Clueless?
Honestly, never seen it.
You would like it. Maybe someday we'll do Emma, and we can also watch Clueless.
It's based off a book?
It's based on Emma. It's like 90s socialite version of Emma.
Oh. Like in the same way that like 10 Things I Hate About You is...
Yeah, it was like the kickstart of like that fad.
Oh.
I rewatched the SpongeBob SquarePants movie.
That one
Always
just
classic.
That one just replays in my head whenever I go to sleep, so I don't ever have to rewatch it.
Trying to think. I haven't read a whole lot else. I've been busy. But those were the movies I saw.
Started watching House again.
I feel like you're always either currently watching House or recently started rewatching House.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's a show that I've seen enough times that I don't actually have to pay attention to know what's happening. So It's like my brain is... So whenever I watch things, I have to like dedicate my full attention to it. Unless I've like know exactly what's going to happen, then I can dedicate my life to other things. So that's like the one... It's legitimately like the only show that I can like watch and also like do other things too.
I use YouTube for that.
I mean, I do that for YouTube too, but sometimes I'm away from my phone or away from my computer, and I'm like, and by away from my
Put
computer,
YouTube
I mean,
on the TV.
And by that, I mean I'm downstairs cooking food or eating food in the kitchen, and so I'm like, I'll turn the TV on. We'll watch House.
Oh yeah, I always just end up trying to find like I put on like game shows or whatever if I need like
noise
content that I know will be inoffensive in mixed company to play out loud.
I was also watching Monk for a little bit.
Monk is good.
Monk is good.
You should watch Psych. It has Sam.
Oh, I completely forgot about Dule Hill's appearance. And all I could think about every time I see him now after watching Psych is that like this movie's about how racism is bad. But then like the main joke of his character is that like, or one of the main jokes of Psych is that like Sean like always comes up with like racist names for him.
He doesn't come up with racist names for him.
They're at least towing the line.
Racially tinged names for him.
I think they're more than tinged, Josh.
We're gonna go through every single one. Gus nicknames list.
Okay, so audience, when we cut this part out and it's released as its own separate episode that goes on for 45 minutes because there was 100 episodes of Psych, and we're rating how racist each of these nicknames are.
Die Harder. Not racist. Matt. Not racist. Big Head Burton.
I don't know. I'm getting some phrenology from that one.
Okay, here. Let me read only the ones I think are racially tinged. Okay, never mind.
This is a bad segment, Josh.
Home Skillet. Black Star. Most of them, actually. I would be reading the whole list.
I told you,
Never
Josh. I'm right about this.
Reginald G-String, a.k.a. Crowd Pleaser.
That one's not racist.
He apparently called him Fingers at least twice.
I wonder what the writer's room was like when they were like, okay, let's pitch some names for what Sean can call Gus.
It was probably their favorite part of writing every episode. Okay, what are we doing next time?
We are doing, I don't recall, are we doing Pride and Prejudice?
No Country for Old Men.
Nope. No Country for Old Men.
So we'll go from what I have coined the children's Coen Brothers movie to the most violent and upsetting Coen Brothers movie ever made.
How do you think Anton Chigurh would have handled being sent to camp?
Well, presumably he would have found out there's treasure somewhere and then brutally murdered everyone in his way.
I forget. Is he is he hired by somebody to retrieve the money in that film?
He is a hitman.
Okay.
Yeah. Which it's almost like, I mean, it's almost hard to even get that. Like, you have to really be paying attention. Because otherwise he's just like, and this is the point, he's just this like force of malevolent evil. We'll get to it next week or next month.
Spoilers.
All right. Close us out.
Well, that's all. As always, we'd like to give credit to those that made this podcast possible. Those that worked on the adaptation, a great big thanks for making the world just a little bit more artful. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Join us next time as we explore this unbelievable force of unnatural evil in No Country for Old Men. A-R-M-P-I to the T. What is that? You smelling dog? That's me. I don't take showers and I don't brush my teeth. That's all I do is dig holes, eat, and sleep. There is no lake, there is no shade, there is no...